It is Medical Monday. Dr. Gnewikow from Advanced Hearing Solutions in Mount Juliet is back with us answering lots of calls. We've had some great questions. If you have a question, the lines are open right now. 615-737+ is the number to call. I want to go back to that first visit. If someone comes in, how do you test for the hearing loss?
Well, a big part of hearing testing is not so much hearing testing as it is understanding what the problem that person is experiencing. So the very first thing we do is sit down with somebody and try to understand what has gotten them to the point of sitting in our office. And sometimes that's a spouse or a daughter or son dragging them in there. But a lot of times it is, okay, these are the frustrations, or these are sometimes the embarrassments that I'm experiencing. This is really what's driving me crazy about missing out on sound. So I would say almost as important, or sometimes more important than the actual testing and decibels and all that, is really understanding what the problem is so that we can figure out the best way to help that person. But once we do that, we sit down and we do several different types of hearing tests. So we've had people call, talk about ringing in the ears, and we've had people call talking about, you know, maybe a medical problem. So that first visit is a way for us to establish what's really going on with your hearing. You know, is this just a genetic or age-related thing that we've talked about? Is this likely due to noise? Is there some medical condition for which we need to refer you on to a medical specialist? How do you understand words? That's a big part of what we do. We test with some background noise. So it's really trying to get, there's 4 or 5 or 6 different tests depending on the person that we see, to get kind of a comprehensive idea of what is your hearing, what are you hearing, what are you missing? And then I think probably, again, almost as important or more important is explaining that. And so I always encourage, in fact, I sat down with my staff today and we reiterate every time someone calls in, bring a family member with you. I cannot tell you how many times I've sat down with somebody and explained their hearing and they said, oh, I wish I'd brought my wife, or I wish my husband were here to hear this. Because a lot of times in that, when we're talking about husband, wife, or whoever your significant other is, family member, that's who the hearing loss affects the most. You know, my wife is more affected by my hearing loss than my redneck buddies. They don't care, you know, but it's somebody that I spend a lot of time with. And so it's important for that person to understand, okay, this is what's really happening. And this is not just a matter of attention, or it's not just a matter of, oh, he hears what he wants to hear. We can talk about that too. I'm perfectly capable of carrying on that conversation. But I think it's extremely important that the patient, as well as their family member, their significant other, kind of understand where the problems are and what options we might have to help. So we actually schedule an hour and a half for that first visit, because we won't have time to do all of that, you know, to understand the problem, to do the test, and then to really help you, your family, understand what's happening.
And that first visit is a free visit. It
is. So the first time we see a patient, we do it at no charge, bring you in, kind of go through all those things that I said. After that, depending on kind of what we do, there can be charges for hearing tests, for follow-ups. But no, I look at that first visit as a chance for people to come in and interview me, or interview my audiologist, meet my staff, and decide, okay, is this somebody that I want to work with? Is this somebody that I want to trust my hearing to?
And a question too, I'm going to jump around just a little bit, but for folks who already maybe have a hearing aid, they know they have hearing loss, but they're frustrated by their hearing aids, they don't feel good, they're not working well, your door is still open.
Absolutely. And so I preach this, I've probably said this in the past on this show, and anything we do on the web or when I do seminars, how people hear with hearing aids is far, far more about how those hearing aids are fit and adjusted to them than it is the hearing aid itself. There are 20 different brands of hearing aids. If you want to know the truth, the hearing aid companies aren't going to like this. They're all about the same, okay? They all have good technology. Almost all of them have cool things like Bluetooth and noise reduction, and I can get small versions in all of these different brands. And so when somebody says, well, I've got such and such hearing aid, is that a good one? I say, well, sure, but it all depends on how that hearing aid is fit to their hearing loss. There is a prescription for hearing. A lot of people don't know that, but just like you would have a prescription for glasses, you have a prescription for hearing. And every hearing aid we fit, we use something called a probe microphone system. If you have not had this done with your hearing aids, this is probably part of the problem. A probe microphone system, we actually put a microphone in the ear, then put the person's hearing aid on, and measure what that person is hearing, what the hearing aid is doing for different sounds, noise and speech and soft sounds and loud sounds and medium sounds. And that's how you fit a hearing aid to a prescription. Unfortunately, what happens most of the time, research says when a hearing aid is fit, 65 to 70% of people never have this measurement done. So then it's a lot of guesswork. It's like, well, how does that sound to you? I'm not saying that's a terrible thing,
right,
but it's far less accurate and far less scientific. And
so
I know I'm answering your...
Why is that not happening, though, such a large percentage of the time?
I think some of it is the expertise of the person that's doing the fitting, of the audiologist or the hearing aid person. I think part of it is that piece of equipment cost about $18,000. And so sometimes, you know, somebody's opening up a practice going, I think we'll skimp on that a little bit. But that is an invaluable tool to be able to maximize how somebody hears. And most of the time when you describe the person that you said that they say, well, I have a hearing aid, but I've never really liked it. When we measure how they're set to the prescription, usually, not always, but usually that's where the problem is it's not where it needs to be.
Very interesting. Okay, when we come back, I want to talk about after you've done the hearing test and you know that somebody has hearing loss, how do you help them make choices?
Okay.
And part of that, I'm sure, is the test. But we're going to talk about more of them when we come back. Also, if you have questions, call us now, 615-737-PLUS.